What's going on? What's going on? We're gonna talk about the whole 135-pound weight division real quick. All right. We all know what's been going on with Gary Russell and Devin Haney the last couple of days, and you know, Gary Russell basically got put into a space where he's like, you know what? I'm gonna take what you guys are saying that you once ago you'll give me for this particular fight, and he said okay to the 1.5 million. The second he does that, the Haney team all of a sudden starts talking about, oh, we can do the fight if you even know, but it has to have options. Where if you lose, then you got to come and fight for us. You got to fight you got to fight under our banner. We'll get you another fight. We'll get you two other fights. You got to fight basically on the zone, where then now they have control over him. And some people have tried to compare it to like a Manny Pacquiao versus uh, Jeff Horn type of situation, which is not the same thing. Jeff Horn, this was going to be life changing money that he was about to fight for when it came to Manny Pacquiao. It was life changing money type of situation. It's going to be type of money he had never seen before in his life. When it comes to the money that Gary Russell's taking for Devin Haney, he's taking less money than he's made for in the past. He's making maybe 100,000 more than he's made in his last two fights. So it's nothing that's life changing when it comes to it. Like his brother said, hey, give me 4 million, give me 5 million. You know what I'm saying? Give us something like that. Then okay, yeah, then you can put them options on. Because then now you're giving him a substantial amount more money, a lot more than what he had seen before. But this is what I'm talking about when it comes to this thing. All of a sudden, everybody's like, oh yeah, you got to look at him like he's the promoter. You can't just look at him as a man or the guy that you know. You got to look at him as like the promoter. All of a sudden now we cool with people being businessmen. All of a sudden now we're cool with the business of boxing when it comes to this particular fighter and when it comes to this particular situation. It can't be that way. Even though you might like a particular guy, we like that demographic, you know what I'm saying? Father and son, stay, thick and thin like this. The training this kid, keeping him on the right path. He progresses and he gets into the space that he's in right now. It's a beautiful story. You love that story, right? But you still gotta stay on that same. You gotta stay on with the same mindset, even though it comes to him. You still gotta hold him to the same standards as you do everybody else. Now all of a sudden it's okay for them to be promoters. Now it's okay for this particular person to be businessmen. But then we're gonna trash other fighters for doing the same thing. If you're gonna be okay with this, him doing something like this, then you gotta be okay with everybody else. When you look at somebody like a Lomachenko had these are the options that Lomachenko had. I can fight this new kid Devin Haney, right, from my belt. I could do that, right? He's not that well known. He fights on a closed app that doesn't get a lot of viewerships. He's fighting on YouTube undercards. I can fight him, right? This other guy over here, Teofimo Lopez, he's been fighting on ESPN. He's been fighting in front of millions of people. He's knocking people the F out. He's fought against a credible champion, and 1.6 million people just saw him knock that man out. Teofimo Lopez just fought on a Terence Crawford undercard, and the peak of that bout of that day wasn't with Terence Crawford with his fight. The peak was Teofimo Lopez in his fight. That's when the peak of the day was. So you have this option over here where you can fight Teofimo Lopez, okay? And you got it set up with the WBC where you're able to fight for undisputed. You're able to get this franchise thing and still quote, I guess somehow keep this whatever. So they're calling it undisputed. I don't think it's undisputed, but they're calling it undisputed. Okay? You're fighting somebody that's been seen in front of millions of people have seen him. So he's been able to grow a fan base due to the fact that millions of people have seen him, have saw him. And you get to keep everything in-house. Your promoter's handling everything. Your managers are handling everything. Your network is handling everything. Everything is completely in-house, where you know how everything runs and you don't have to worry about any effery going on from the outside whatsoever. When you look at those two options, the best business move for him in that particular situation is to fight Teofimo Lopez, this champion that he's fighting. That's his best move right there, is to fight that guy. You look at somebody like a Gervonta Tank Davis, everybody's been lately just been trashing for his opponent. Number one, for years everybody was saying we want to see Gary Russell fight against Leo Santa Cruz. We want to see Leo Santa Cruz against Gary Russell. I wanted to see that fight. That was a big fight, right? And everybody was 100% cool with that fight, right? But all of a sudden now that it's Tank fighting Santa Cruz, and Tank's coming down in weight by the way, back to 130 to face his champion at 130. Now all of a sudden, because it's Tank fighting him, there's a problem, there's an issue. And again, with Tank, these are your options. You can fight this young kid who's fighting on a closed app that no one's watching, that's fighting on YouTube undercards, that's not getting a lot of viewership and not getting light on him right now on social media. But when it comes in general, especially when he fights, no, he's not getting any light. I can fight him. These are my options, right? Or I can fight this other guy that has fought in front of tens of millions of people, okay, during his career, okay? That I've seen whenever he's on big fights, he'll bring in 13, 14, 15,000 people to his bouts. Okay, who was a champion, lost his belt, got his belt back against Frampton. Had people from Ireland who know who he is, Scotland, the UK who know who he is, because they all saw him fight their countrymen. You know, we know the Mexican crowd that he brings in, because Devin Haney, he's bringing in the same demographic from where that you have. And you already got that demographic on lock. So you can fight him where you're basically the same demographic, or you can fight this other guy who's a long-time veteran, who's been a champion for a long time, who's substantially well more known, and you know the kind of numbers you'll get if you end up fighting him, because we've seen what he's done with his fights, higher tier fighters like a Frampton or like a Mares, and you can bring in this whole other demographic. Business-wise, Santa Cruz is the better choice. That's the better choice. But we trash both these individuals for the decisions that they've made when it pertains to the business side. But when it comes to this particular side over here, we're cool with him calling out an Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner saying, I'll fight you. I'll come all the way down to 135 pounds to fight you. And him just brushing that off aside. We're cool with a guy willing to come down from 126 all the way to 135 to fight you, agreeing to the amount of money that you give him, but then now you want options on him. And that's all cool now because it's business. Because, oh, well, he's a promoter and it's negotiations. Now it's that. It's either we're about this boxing-ish and we're going to call people out on everything regardless of who they are, or we got to understand everything that everybody does when it pertains to the business as well. You know? Then they're like, oh, then we're going to trash Tank for wanting Ryan Garcia next. What's the bigger fight? You got Ryan Garcia, yes, who also fights on that close platform, but has a way bigger following. This kid, he puts things on his YouTube stuff and gets 500,000 plus views on a consistent basis. This kid has more Twitter followers than freaking Canelo Alvarez. He has a huge following. Gervonta Tank has a huge following. You know, these two, you're talking about two monsters when it comes to that. And you put them together on a bout, fireworks. You're talking about maximum pay. You know? When you're looking at those two people, that the business, the promoter-wise, what's the bigger fight? That's the bigger fight. So you can't then trash him and be upset with him that he'll go towards that direction rather than go towards Devin Haney, because that's the bigger fight. And business-wise, that makes more sense. You know, you got to keep it the same. You got to keep it the same. You know, you got to keep it the same. I'll say it again. You got to keep it the same. We can't start flip-flopping because we like this particular guy, we like, that demographic, and we think he wants to do this, and we assume he wants to do this. In a couple of days, we'll see if this fight happens. You know what I mean? But if that was Gervonta Tank Davis talking to someone, and they agreed to the price that he gave up, that he put down, and all of a sudden he started throwing out options, everybody would have been on his tail, trashing him. No one would be talking about what's good for business and the promoter and how things are done and all. No one will be talking about that. So we got to keep that same energy when it comes to everybody. But for now, like, subscribe, share. I'm out.